Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Om Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Mavamahe, Kavin Kavinam Upavashravastramam, Jeshtarajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata, Anushrannoti Visida Sadhanam. Om Mahaganadipataye Namaha. Om Keshwaya Namaha, Om Nara-narayana Namaha. Om Madhavaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha, Om Vishnavaya Namaha, Matsudraya Namaha, Trivikramaya Namaha, Vamanaya Namaha, Sridharaya Namaha, Hrishikeshaya Namaha, Padmanabhaya Namaha, Damodaraya Namaha, Sankarshnaya Namaha, Vasudevaya Namaha, Pradyumnaya Namaha, Niruddhaya Namaha, Purushottamaya Namaha, Dokshaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha, Achyutaya Namaha, Janataraya Namaha, Upendraya Namaha, Hare Namaha, Sri Krishnaya Namaha, Sri Krishnaya Namaha, Sri Krishnaya Namaha, Sri Krishnaya Namaha, Hari Om, Hari Om. The study of Mahabharata is a very auspicious, and reading Mahakavya is very beneficial. The one who reads even 1 foot of belief with his sins entirely purged away. Herein Devas, Devarishis and immaculate Brahmarishis of good deeds have been spoken of, and likewise Yakshas and great Nagas. Herein also had been described the eternal Vasudeva possessing the 6 attributes. These are the 6 attributes: is true and the just true, the pure and the holy, the eternal Brahman, the supreme soul, the true constant light, whose divine deals, wise and learned recount, from whom has been proceeded the non-existent and existent and non-existent, existent, non-existent and existent, universe with principles of generation, of progression and birth, death and rebirth, that also had been treated, of which is called Adharma. The superintending spirit of the nature is Adharma, that partakes of the attributes of the 5 elements, that also had been described, who is Purusha, being above such principles and undisplayed, unlike also that which foremost is exempt from the common destiny and endued with power of meditation and tapas, behold, dwelling in their hearts as a reflected image in the mirror. The man of faith, the man of the faith who devoted to earn punya and clear his sins, and constant in the exercise of the virtue, on reading this section alone is freed from the sin. The believer that constantly here had recited this section of Mahabharata, called the introduction. Safely we can call it as an introduction. What I said all this time is a part of the introduction of the great epic Mahabharata. The man repeating any part of the introduction in 2 twilights is during such act freed from the sins contracted during the day or the night. This section, the body of the Mahabharata, is truth and nectar, as butter is in the curd, Brahman among bipeds, Aranyaka among the Vedas, and nectar among the medicines, as the sea is eminent among receptacles of water, and cow among the quadrupeds. As are these among the things mentioned, so is the Mahabharata said to be among histories and literature. By the aid of history and Puranas, the Veda may be expounded, but the Veda is afraid of one of little information, lest he should it be. The learned man who recites to others this Veda of Vyasa repeat the advantage. It may without doubt destroy even the sin of killing the embryo and the like. He that had this holy chapter of the Mahabharata, read the whole of the Bharata, and then the man with reverence daily listen to this sacred work of Vyasa Maharishi, acquired long life and renown, and ascends to the heaven at the end of his life. In the former days, having placed the 4 Vedas on one side of the scale, and Mahabharata on the other side, these were weighed in the balance of the celestials assembled for that purpose. And as the latter, that is Mahabharata, weighed heavier than the four Vedas with their mysteries, from that period it has been called the world Mahabharata, the great epic of Mahabharata, being esteemed superior both in the substance and gravity of import. It is denominated Mahabharata, an account of such substance and gravity of import. He that knows this meaning is saved from all his sins. Tapas is an innocent study in the harmless. The ordinance of the Vedas prescribed for all the tribes are harmless. The acquisition of wealth by exertion is harmless. But when they are abused in their practices, it is then that they become source of evil and karma will combine. Thus ends the introduction of the Mahabharata epic. Now we will go to the section 2. In the section 2, Suta Maharishi is been asked the rishis and munis who are assembled in the Naimisharanya wish to hear a full and circumferential account of the place mentioned by you as Samanta Panchaka. Samanta Panchaka is the old name of Kurukshetra. Samanta Panchaka is the old name of Kurukshetra. Suta Maharshi said, "Listen, O Brahmanas, to the sacred descriptions I utter. O best of men, you deserve to hear the place known as Samanta Panchaka. In the interval between the Treta Yuga and Dwapara Yugas, Rama, the son of Jamadagni, great among all, who have borne arms urged by impatience of wrongs, repeatedly he killed so many Kshatriyas who are supposed to be evil. And when that fiery work has been done with valor, annihilated the entire tribe of Kshatriyas, he formed at Samanta Panchaka 5 lakes of blood. That's why it's called Panchaka. We are told that his reason being overpowered by anger, he offered oblations of blood to the Pitrus of his ancestors, standing in the midst of the waters of these lakes. It was then that his forefathers, of whom Richika was the first having arrived, they addressed him thus: O Rama, blessed Rama, Parashurama, O offspring of Bhrigu Maharshi, we have been gratified with the reverence thou have shown for the ancestors and with the valor. O mighty one, blessings upon you. O thou illustrious one, ask the boon that you must desire. Parashurama said, if, O fathers, you are favorably disposed towards me, the boon I ask is that I may be absolved from the sins born of my having annihilated the Kshatriyas in the anger, and that the lakes I have formed may become famous in the world as the holy shrines. The Pitrus then said, so shall be it, so shall it be. But by thou pacified, Parashurama was pacified accordingly. The region that lies near unto these lakes of glory water, from that time has been celebrated as Samanta Panchaka, the holy. The wise have declared that every country should be distinguished by name significant of some circumstance which may have rendered it famous. In the interval between the Dwapara and the Kali Yuga, there happened at Samanta Panchaka the encounter between the armies of the Kaurava and Pandavas. In that holy region, without regardless of any kind, were assembled 18 Akshohini Sainya soldiers, eager for the battle. And O Brahmanas, having come there too, they were all slain on the spot. Thus the name of that region, O Brahmanas, had been explained, and the country described to you as a sacred and delightful one. I have mentioned the whole of what real to it as the region is celebrated throughout the 3 worlds. Rishis and Munis said, we have desired to know, O son of Suta Maharshi, what is implied by the term Akshohini that has been used by you. Tell us in full what is the number of horses and foot, chariots and elephants which compose Akshohini, for thou art are fully informed. This is the old way of traditions of counting the capacity of the army by counting the soldiers. Sutta Maharshi said, one chariot, one elephant, 5 foot soldiers, and 3 horses form one patti. 3 pattis make one senamukha. 3 senamukhas are called gulma. 3 gulmas a gana. 3 ganas a vahini. 3 vahinis together are called pritana. 3 pritanas form a chamu. 3 chamus, one ankini and an ankini, taken 10 times forms, as it is stated by those who know an akshohini. O best of Brahmanas, arithmeticians have calculated that the number of chariots in akshohini is 21,870. The measure of elephants must be fixed at the same number. O you pure Brahmins, you must know that the number of foot soldiers is 109,350. The number of horses is 65,610. These, O Brahmanas, as fully explained, are the numbers of an Akshohini, as said by those acquainted with the principles of numbers. O best of Brahmanas, according to this calculation, were composed the 18 Akshohinis of Kaurava and the Pandava army. Time, whose acts are wonderful, assembled them on that spot, and having made Kauravas the cause, destroyed them all. Bhishma, acquainted with the choice of weapons, fought for 10 days. Drona protected the Kaurava Vahinis for 5 days. Karna, the desolator of hostile armies, fought for 2 days, and Salva for half a day. After that, lasted for half a day the encounter with clubs between Duryodhana and Bhima. At the close of the day, Ashwathama and Kripa destroyed the army of Yudhishthira in the night while sleeping without suspicion of danger. O Sonaka Maharshi, this best of narrations called Mahabharata, which has begun to be repeated at any sacrifice, whose formerly repeated at sacrifice of Janamejaya by an intelligent disciple of Vyasa Maharshi, it is divided into several sections. In the beginning are Paushya, Puloma, and Astika Parvas, describing in full the valor and renown of kings. It is a work whose description, diction, and sense are varied and wonderful. It contains an account of various manners and rites. It is accepted by the wise as the state called Vairagya is by men desirous of final release, as self among things to be known, as life among things that are dear. So is the history that furnished the means of arriving at the knowledge of Brahman, the first among all the Shastras. There is not a story current in this world, but both depend upon the history, even as a body upon the foot that it is taking. As masters of good lineage are ever attended upon by servants, desirous of preferment, so is the Mahabharata cherished by all the poets. As the words constituting the several branches of knowledge appertaining to the world, and the Veda display only vowels and consonants. So this excellent history of Mahabharata display only the highest wisdom. Listen, O ascetics, pure Brahmins, to the outlines of the several divisions, Purvas, of this history called Mahabharata, endued with a great wisdom of sections and feet that are wonderful and various of subtle meanings and logical connections, and embellished with the substance of the Vedas. The first Purva is called Anukramanika, The second Parva is called Sangraha, then Paulsha, and then Puloma, then Astika, then Adivanastava. Then comes the Sambhava Parva of wonderful, of thrilling incidents. Then comes the lac, palace of lac burning, Jataragni Hada, Jaturigra Hada, and then Hidambavada, the killing of Hidambavada Parva. Then comes Bhaktabhoda, slaughter of Bakabhada, and then Chitraratha. The next is called Swayamvara, section husband by Panchali, in which Arjuna, by the exercise of Kshatriya virtues, won Draupadi as a wife. Then comes the Vaivahika marriage. Then comes Viduragamana, advent of Vidura. And then Rajyalabha, acquirement of kingdom. Arjuna Vanavasa, exile of Arjuna. And Subhadra Harana, the carrying away of Subhadra. After these come Harana Harika, Khandava Dahana, the burning of Khandava forest, and Maya Darshana, meeting with Maya, the architect who built the palace for Yudhishthira. Then come Sabha Parva, Mantra Parva, Jarasandha Parva, Digvijaya Parva. All these Parva comes. After Digvijaya Parva come Rajasuyoga. The robbing of Argya and Shishupala Vada, the killing of Shishupala. After this, Dyuta, gambling. Anudyita, subsequent of gambling. Aranyaka and Krimara Bhada, destruction of Krimara. Then Arjuna Vigamana. So Arjuna travels Kairati in the last bath. Last has been described as the battle between Arjuna and Mahadeva in the guise of the hunter. After this, Indraloka Vigamana. Arjuna goes to Indra's palace. Then that mine of religion and virtue. The highly pathetic Naropakyana, the story of Nara. After this last Tirthayatra, or the pilgrimage of the wise prince of the Kurus, the death of Jatasura and the battle of Yakshas, then battle with Nivalakavachas, Ajagara, and Markandeya Samasya, meeting with Markandeya. Then the meeting of Draupadi and Satyabhama, Goshayatra, Mrugaswapna, dream of the deer. Then the story of Brihadaranyaka, and then Aindradhumna. Then Draupadi Harana, the abduction of Draupadi. Jayadratha Bhimasena, the release of Jayadratha. Then the story of Savitri, illustrating the great merit of connubial chastity, Pativrata Dharma of Savitri. After this last, the story of Rama. The Parva that comes next is called Kundala Harana, the theft of the earrings. That which comes next is Aranya, and then Vairata, then the entry of the Pandavas and the fulfillment of their promise of living unknown for 1 year. Then the destruction of the Kichaka, then the attempt to take the kind Virata by the Kauravas. The next is called the marriage of Abhimanyu with the daughter of Virata. You must know is the most wonderful Parva called Udyog. The next must be known by the name of Sanjaya Yana. the arrival of Sanjaya. Then comes Prajagara, the sleeplessness of Dhritarashtra owing to his anxiety. Then of Krishna. Then the story of Matali and then Galva. Then the stories of Savitri, Vamadeva and Vinaya. Then the story of Jamadagni and Shodasarjika. Then arrival of Krishna at the court, and then the last